Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. We are going to be in the Basic Fantasy book today. It is a free game. If you want to download the PDFs, just go to basicfantasy.org. They have adventures that are free too. You could download them, repurpose their maps, or repurpose their adventures for whatever game system you are using. Just pull out the monster stats and plug in your game's monster stats. And if a counter seems imbalanced, then that's when you need to make bigger alterations. But other than that, just run it as is. Save you a lot of prep work. In this video, we are going to do character creations. We're going to create a magic user for this video. I'm going to roll the stats that I'll be starting with. I am not going to use them in the order I roll, only because I'm tailoring the video to making a magic user. But normally you would roll your stats in order, and if your game master allows, you could switch a stat around or do a different method to rolling your stats. My usual method outside of this game is to roll my stats, all 6 of them, and then place them in what order benefits me. It's the D&D setup, so that's the normal way I would play. Now, when I play other games, I try to play in their system because it builds up how it's supposed to work and how it's supposed to feel, which is always fun to see. So, without further ado, let me roll some stats real quick. I got a 12. 11. To roll stats for this system, you roll 3 6-sided dice. And that's it. And you roll it for all 6 stats. Another 11. So far, this character seems about average on his stats. Another 11. No, wait, that's a 10. That shows me paying attention. Okay, so there's 4. Hopefully I can get something closer to a 15 for my spellcasting. $11, $12, $13, $14. 14, that would be close enough if I don't roll anything else higher on my last roll. And an 11. So I'll recap my stats for you guys real quick. I rolled a 12, 11, 11, 10, 14, 11. I could almost play those stats as is in the character sheet. I just got to make sure the 14 would be my intelligence for casting magic. If I want to be a magic user, a character must have an intelligence score of 9 or higher to become a magic user. So I'll be an elf magic user because I don't think I've created an elf racial character in this game yet. Remember creating a halfling. I believe I had a halfling cleric and a dwarf fighter so far. So we'll do an elf magic user and a human thief next video. So elf. And even though they call it a magic user, if I was playing D&D, I'd refer to this as a wizard, or a spellcaster. So as an elf, what are my restrictions? They have to have a minimum intelligence of 9. Okay, so that works in my favor. Due to their nature, they may not have a constitution higher than 17. So my constitution cannot be higher than a 17. I don't have a 17 to place, so that works. So we'll go strength. Let me look up the listing of their attributes. I'll list them the same and get more used to that. But the attributes are pretty much the same as any D&D game. They're just listed differently. So it starts with strength, then it lists intelligence. So my intelligence will be 14. It lists wisdom after that. It lists dexterity after that, then constitution, then charisma. So Being an elf, I want to be semi-frail, so I'll put a 10, which is my lowest ability, into Constitution. So my 14 and my 10 are accounted for, so I got a 12, 11, and 11. Being an elf, I want to be more dexterous than strong, so I'll put the 12 there. And then I have 3 11s to place. So Strength's 11, Wisdom's 11, Charisma's 11. From here, I need to look up my attack, or not my attack, my ability modifiers. So, a 9 through 12 is a plus 0. So my 14 should be a plus 1. So I get a plus 1 for intelligence, and all my rest are plus 0s. Okay. Elves get a plus 1 on saves versus paralysis or petrify. And they get a plus 2 versus magic wands and spells. So I'll make a note of that. They have dark vision 60 feet. Which I don't like, coming from 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons and now Pathfinder. I like elves having low light vision, so that's out of game context why I don't like it. I'd make a note that they're able to find secret doors on a 1 to 2 on a d6. And I'd also make a note to remind the game master of that ability whenever I'm actually looking around. And I'm immune to the paralysis of ghouls, so I'd write that down. And then I'm more resistant to the surprise in combat, so I'd make a note of that. On a 1 on a d6 roll, I am not caught by surprise in a surprise round. So, magic users are those who seek and use knowledge of the arcane. They do magic not as the cleric does, by faith in greater power, but rather through insight and understanding. Magic users are the worst of all the classes at fighting, which makes sense. Hours spent studying massive tomes of magic do not lead a character to become strong or adept with weapons. They are the least hardy, equal to thieves at lower levels, but quickly falling behind. The prime requisite for magic users is intelligence. The only weapon they are proficient with are the dagger and the walking staff, or a cudgel. Magic users may not wear armor of any sort, nor use a shield, as such things interfere with spellcasting. At first level, magic users begin play with knowing, read magic, and one other spell of first level. These spells are written in the spellbook provided by his or her master. The game master may roll for the spell, assign it as he or she sees fit, or allow the player to choose it at his or her option. See the spells section for more details. I'm going to pick mine, but I'd be very okay if I had a game master just going to hand me it. And if it wasn't useful for combat, I'd be trying to figure out ways to make it useful for combat, because being creative is always fun in role-playing games. Now, something to note, my hit points are going to be low. I roll a d4 for hit points. Now, that doesn't surprise me, because in 3rd edition D&D, a wizard had a d4 hit points. So you had the least amount of hit points out of all the classes. I rolled a 3. So compared to my fighter, he is just as hardy as the fighter, which is hilarious. I'd make a note of how much experience I need to level, which is 2,500. And then let's go look at spells. I would roll randomly for my starting money and pick my starting gear after I get spells. And I'd definitely take a quarterstaff and dagger. I'm surprised they're not proficient in a basic ranged weapon like Sling. Just because I'm more familiar with the 3rd edition Wizards. But I'd play to this. This wouldn't be that much more difficult to play to. So, spells in alphabetical order, but let's just see 1st level spells. Okay. So I could roll a d12 and use that to randomize my spells. Or just pick from the list. Charm Person, Detect Magic, Floating Disc, Hold Portal, Light, Magic Missile, Magic Mouth, Protection from Evil, Read Languages, Shield, Sleep, Ventriloquism. Based on this, I'd want an offensive spell because that's the type of player I am. So I would pick Magic Missile, starting. And I'd write down that I have Read Magic. And it, just like any other D&D game, the Read Magic spell can be prepared without a spell book because they have learned that spell intuitively. I'm trying to see if there's anything special about spellcasting I need to know. Otherwise, I only got one spell prepared, and that's the spell I can use. Which wouldn't surprise me. Because back in, we'll use 3rd edition D&D since it's on my mind. In 3rd edition D&D, you couldn't cast your 0 level spells for your classes more than a handful of times in a day. Whereas now in Pathfinder, you can cast those endlessly. So I don't see any rulings here telling me anything different, so I'm going to assume okay, this is the optional rule section. You can roll your intelligence to prepare spells that you don't have access to in your spellbook. So say your spellbook was lost. That's pretty cool. But if you fail, it exhausts the spell slot you're trying to use to prepare the spell, just as if it had been successfully cast. Magical research. So if you only get the one spell for the one casting, I would start investing after the very first adventure with my money as the mage into one-use items of scrolls, and then after 2 or 3 adventures, I would start investing into wands that would have multiple uses. So that way, I have more options spell-wise in combat. Now, if they're not available, that's something you have to deal with in the world itself, because that'd be part of the world. So you'd have to figure out, okay, well, the wands aren't available, so either I have to take craft wand or I have to find somebody that can craft wand, and then I have to figure out what they want from me, and for me to get the wands. So my elf magic user, I'd make a note of the rest of his saves, because I haven't done that, and then I'd spend the money appropriately on adventuring gear. And if I had money and the game master was letting me, I'd try to buy a scroll or 2 and either try to add it to my spell book for another spell or have it as ammo for the adventure. So that's my elf magic user. Let me know if this video was helpful to you. If you know if the rules of the spellcasting better than I do for the magic user, let me know in the comments below if my assumption that you only get that 1 slot for 1 casting in the day is right or not. Also, if you found this useful and you want to play Basic Fantasy, share this with your fellow players so they can see how I created a magic user and what the general process is. Until we all game again, guys.